And our university systems are not doing a very good job of it. I'm sure you've seen the data that by the time a graduate leaves the university system, what they learn is 4 years obsolete. So we have to reevaluate how we're doing things and not do things the way we've done them to. People will say, well, we have air conditioner and we have computers in our classroom, so we've kept up with the times. But I bet you if I was to take those out of every classroom, we go back and look at classrooms 250 years ago, classrooms are still looking the same. And they were effective at that time because it was a different economy. We are now working in an economy where they need results right away. I was just working with a company the other day that said that every week they have to wait for results, cost them millions of dollars. Every month that they wait gets into the billions of dollars.
Greetings, my name is Joel Lumdarcom. I'm a marketer, a journalist, a social impact creator, and most recently an author of Future Makers, a guide to 30 creative careers. You are tuned into EdUp Accelerated Excellence.
This episode of EdUp Accelerated Excellence is supported by the 2.0 conferences to be held in Las Vegas, Nevada, April 7th through 9th, 2026. Business leaders, educators, healthcare experts, marketing and tech professionals, and founding entrepreneurs are welcome to take part. Reserve your space today and receive a 15% discount courtesy of EdUp Accelerated Excellence with the code EDUPXE15OFF. That's EDUPXE15OFF. Check the show notes for more information or learn more and register online at the2conf.com. That's the2conf.com with the code EDUPXE15OFF.
Heads up, this episode on the good, the bad, and the ugly of AI use in the classroom includes some adult topics and language on the protection of children. Welcome to EdUp Accelerated Excellence, the podcast for the advancement of educational excellence and equity. And I'm your host, Jacob Easley, the second PhD PMP. And today's guest is Dr. Christopher Bonn, who is the founder and creator of Bonfire Leadership Solutions. So, Chris, will you please introduce yourself by giving voice to your name and give us a high-level elevator overview of Bonfire Leadership Solutions.
Dr. Easley, thank you so much for having me on your show again today. My name is Dr. Christopher Bonn. I'm a recovering school superintendent. And when I retired about 3 years ago, I decided that I wanted to start working with organizations, especially in communities that are often misserved or what I call held hostage, because there's only a few organizations out there that will work in rural and in tribal communities. And so a lot of times those communities don't get the services that a lot of the bigger cities get. And I would argue that even some of the bigger cities don't get some of the best services. And accidentally, I started working with ed tech companies in the field of artificial intelligence. And because of my work with them in developing products, I learned what artificial intelligence could do. And now I use a lot of that information to help make organizations be more efficient and effective.
So, Chris, we met, and you've been on the podcast, so welcome back to this podcast. We met at the 2.0 conference in Las Vegas, Nevada, a few years back. So I think that was 2 years ago. And you talked about this new venture, Bonfire, and being a recovering superintendent. What have you seen change in the field in the last 2 years related to and shaping your work at Bonfire?
Well, the thing that I'm seeing now, and this is fact, empirical data, is we have a huge crisis in workforce, especially in the area of education. I've expanded on that now. I do work with biopharma, and I work with many other industries because of my work. And they're also having problems finding chemists and just people that have high skilled level jobs. In fact, one out of every 5 six-figure job in the United States that's highly skilled is currently being filled by a foreign national worker. In the next 3 years, it's going to be 3 out of 5 because we just don't have enough people moving into those skilled professions. And I'm really concerned because democracy depends on the education of its citizens. And if we can't even find classroom teachers with a 500,000 teacher shortage as of today, and we know that number is going to double in the next 5 years, we have to look at ways of doing things more efficiently and effectively. But overwhelmingly, our students are being impacted because we're just not able to get quality people in the classrooms anymore.
So Chris, we're not a political show, and that's why I sort of paused in this question, and I'm thinking through it because we're not technically a political show, but you have highlighted something that's very important, the shortage within the workforce. But we're seeing so many initiatives at the federal level that sort of signal to some people, they're internalizing it as devaluation of education as a profession. So perhaps this discussion around not classifying education as a professional field, to dismantling of the Department of Education. So it is signaling something to folks who may have thought of or may be considering education. What would you say to folks who are perhaps on the fence or had not thought about education as a career path?
The democracy that we currently live in depends on the education of its citizens, and we need people in our classrooms to work with children, not only teaching reading, writing, and math, but teaching them the soft skills, how to get along with one another, how to communicate. I would also add that we're now a technology-driven society, and we need to do a better job of integrating technology into our curriculum. As I work with a lot of schools throughout the United States, actually all over the world now, Portugal and Israel and other places, the thing that we're seeing consistently is that we have this generational bridge in our classrooms. We have a lot of people that have been in the profession for a long time, but when they got into the profession, they didn't need to know technology. They didn't need to integrate technology. And now, if we don't integrate technology into our schools, it could be life or death for many of our students. And it certainly has implications in the workforce. And a lot of other countries right now are dominating in those areas, and therefore they're coming over and taking very high-paying jobs. So we really do need people out in society to consider getting into the educational fields. There has been some great improvements in education in the last 5-6 years, I would say. And because of the education shortage, a lot of communities are now seeing that we need to bring value and compensation to recruit and retain quality people. So, I'm seeing a lot of communities now where teachers now can compete with some high-level or C-level jobs. It's not that way everywhere, but we're seeing now people are starting to focus on it because we know, I'm currently working with multiple institutions right now where a third of their classrooms are left empty because they can't even hire anybody. They've recruited, they've offered hiring bonuses and incentives, but there's just nobody out there to fill those positions. And I'm talking right now about teachers, but really when you look at it, it's bus drivers, it's secretaries, it's school psychologists, it's administrators. We just can't find people. And I know we have really good quality people out there, but they've been sort of run out of the profession because of the type of abuse that they endure, unreasonable expectations. A lot of people, they're working at night till 11, 12 o'clock at night. They're working on weekends and holidays. They're not spending time with their families. And so they have to make a choice whether they want to preserve their families or they want to make a living, and they can go work in other places and make a living and still have. And that's been sort of my focus, is how I can get into schools and show them how to do things more efficiently so that when their contract ends, they can go home and spend quality time with their family and friends. In the schools that I work, a lot of people stay because I give them breathing room. But it's unfortunate because there's only a few people like me. Typically, society is resistant to technology and integrating technology, whether it be using it in a curriculum form or just using it on a professional level to make things more efficient.
And I've definitely heard you talk about that idea of how to use technology to make our work a bit more efficient, and also perhaps to make the work a bit more attractive. So thinking about follow through on that line of inspiring folks to go into or consider education, what first led you to education, and what ultimately inspired you to create Bonfire Leadership Solutions?
So what led me into education was I was an athlete. And when I finished college, I wanted to do nothing more than to go back and coach. I wanted to coach football. That's all I wanted to do. Coach football, be in the weight room. And right away, I started realizing some concerns. We had some very talented kids, super talented kids, blue chip athletes that weren't getting into colleges or the universities. And the reason was because we used to just tell them, sit in the back of the class, behave yourself, pretend like you're doing something so that you're eligible to play on Fridays. Because we really don't care if you're learning anything. And unfortunately, a lot of the kids that could have been playing at the next level and changed their whole livelihood and maybe the families and future livelihood didn't have the opportunities because we were trying to keep things mediocre. And so one of the things I decided is that I wanted to become a classroom teacher because I wanted to hold my athletes to a higher standard. I wanted them to be able to take calculus and chemistry classes and do all those things to be more successful. One, because I wanted, I felt like I was a failure if I was coaching these guys to be blue chip athletes, but they couldn't get into the university system. What good was I? And I felt that I was a failure. So instead of complaining and pointing fingers, I decided that I was going to go into the classroom, and I changed my profession. I was going to go into law enforcement, and I decided that I was going to change my profession and go into education. And I did that. And then I decided that I was going to work with children with disabilities because it was sort of an ego thing. Is like, anybody can coach a blue chip athlete, but a good coach can go and coach anybody to be a blue chip athlete. So when I chose my teaching profession, I wanted to work in the classrooms where most people give up on kids and they make them color all day or they let them watch music videos all day. I wanted to show people that we can help kids. That obviously helped me elevate into a position of a principal. I was a turnaround principal at several failing schools, and I turned them around immediately. And then as a result of that, I was asked to go to district levels and help out. And then I retired. And I'll be real honest with you, the reason I retired is because I was going to move into the ed tech industry and make a lot more money and not have to deal with the politics of communities and budget cuts and teacher shortage problems. And I found myself right back here helping out communities, solve the same problems that I dealt with, but I think it's snowballed a little bit more in the last 2 to 3 years because of the crisis that we're having, finding people to come and work in the profession.
And how did that lead you to founding Bonfire Leadership Solutions?
Well, initially, I was just going to help people raise literacy scores because in all the schools that I've worked in, I've had some of the highest literacy growth in the United States. And you've heard me say this before, by keeping it vanilla, because when I was a coach, when we struggled on the field, we didn't put more plays in. And we didn't create and design more intricate plays. We went back to the basics and we got good at the foundation. And I thought that those skills, coaching skills, were the same things that we needed to do as educators. We watched film after every game and we evaluated and analyzed that film. Well, I felt it was the same thing we needed to do as classroom teachers, look at our kids' test scores and narrow it down to site-based or line item questioning and figure out where we can improve so that we can come out as winners. And what I realized right away is that you just have to simplify things and just do it really, really well. You almost have to be obsessed with it. I always tell people, you've heard laser-like focus. I always say you almost have to have an obsessive compulsive disorder when it comes to helping kids find achievement. And so that's what I initially started out. But when I started working with ed tech and I started working with some of the top programmers in artificial intelligence in the world, I realized I could dedicate more of my time to focusing on what I was good at. If I can let the AI do the paperwork, do the disaggregation and aggregation of data, identifying things, helping me write lesson plans, all those things that were taking hours and hours of my time that were really busy work and not really necessarily working individually with students. And so I was able to merge the two together And it sort of has skyrocketed for me. I mean, I just explained to you, I'll be in Las Vegas next week doing 2 breakout sessions and 2 keynotes on the good, the bad, and the ugly of artificial intelligence. Because, you know, though I can certainly tell you I have a personal assistant with the 2000 IQ that works with me all the time because I know how to use it and I use it for good things, that same person or other people can use that same technology to do bad things. And we're seeing that escalate significantly in the United States. In fact, it's an $80 million a month industry now where people are creating deep fakes and revenge porn and doxing and rage baiting so they can get more followers, or even when people are in disagreement, when they're engaging with those people, the algorithms put them down as being popular, and then people will pay them for their popularity. So we're seeing a huge growth in this industry on the bad side too. So though I will certainly tell you that AI can do some wonderful and amazing things to help us out professionally and personally, but that same technology can also be used to do horrible things.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So there's both the good and the bad. So I know it's going to be exciting work for folks who join you at your conferences that are coming up. And that concept of keep it vanilla comes from your book, Igniting Change, the Bonfire Principles for Transforming Toxic Organizations. I just wanted to plug for that. So you're welcome. Let's continue this conversation about AI since you've brought it up. What would you say to educators who fear AI, who see it as one more tool that they have to learn instead of a tool that will actually lighten their load?
Well, I guess the first thing that I need to say is it's not going away. So, you know, there was a point in time where people rode horses every day and they resisted driving automobiles. Now automobiles dominate, and you get left behind because there's just more efficient, effective ways of doing things. And I ride horses personally and I love it, but I certainly don't want to have to ride my horse to my job that's 80 miles away in the morning when I'm commuting. So I use a car. And I think that's sort of the same thing that's happening with technology today, because it's not just AI, it's generative AI, it's predictive AI. It can think and get ahead of you. It can learn from the mistakes that it's made. So that's the first thing I want to say. It's not going away. The second thing is, I often hear people say, well, yeah, it makes mistakes. Yeah, but it makes mistakes at a far less rate than a human being will. Let me give you an example. A medical doctor, does a lot of trial and error, and often it's only effective 60% of the time. AI has a failure rate of 5%, and people will focus on the AI's failure rate of 5% instead of focusing on the human being's failure rate of 40%. And my question would be, why wouldn't we want to partner the two of them together? Can you imagine how more efficient and effective that would make us if we could take that technology, a person or a machine that has a 2000 IQ, and pairing it up with a human, how much more effective we can be? So that would be the first thing that I want to say. The second thing I want to say is ignoring it is not going to make it go away. And I'm asked this question all over the place, and I'm not going to be politically correct here today. People ask me, is it going to take jobs? It's already taking jobs. It's already taking jobs. I have a client in Texas. I won't reveal their name right now. They've been advertising for teachers all year, for 3 years. They can't find one. They can't find any. They've had no applicants. They offer a lot of money. They give signing bonuses. It's a rural community. So they decided to purchase ed tech that's got AI working in the background. And they hire parents, you know, to come in and make sure that equipment's not being damaged and kids are safe. And they monitor or proctor, and AI is working in the background. Right now, that school district is outperforming all the schools in Texas 4-1. And so if people tell me that AI can't replace classroom teachers, it's already happening. And I would say 80 to 90% of my clients that I have, they have classrooms that are not being filled with teachers. There's no adult body in that classroom. So they have to resort to using a technology that's AI-based. And believe it or not, those students right now are outperforming the students that have classroom teachers in there. And I just keep thinking how much more powerful our classrooms would be if we could pair the two, the AI and the competent teachers together how much more efficient it would be. And I would argue that those teachers would be able to go home at a decent rate and spend time with their families and eat dinner and do things for themselves to protect their health and their families and their livelihoods. And so those are the things that I'm really passionate about because I see it firsthand every day. I typically, when I get hired to go into schools to do compliance for them, I can get done in a day what it takes a human to get done in a month. And the reason is because I'm paired up with an assistant that has a 2000 IQ. And it can do it in super fast speeds, speeds that would take me months and months and months to aggregate data, analyze it, find out what's going on. I can put it into a machine and work with that machine. And together we can put out a response in 25 seconds and then use those responses to guide instruction or develop grants or write plans. And so I see the benefit of it. But again, for those of us that are not using it for the good things, there's people out there that are using that system to make money to do bad things and horrible things.
Thank you for listening to EdUp Accelerated Excellence. This episode is supported by the 2.0 conferences to be held in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA, April 7th through 9th, 2026. Business leaders, educators, healthcare experts, marketing and tech professionals, and founding entrepreneurs are welcome to take part. Reserve your space today and receive a 15% discount courtesy of EdUp Accelerated Excellence with the code EDUPXE15OFF. That's EdUPXE15OFF. Check out the details in the show notes or learn more and register online at the2conf.com. That's the2conf.com with the code EDUPXE15OFF.
So Chris, as a former principal and a recovering superintendent, what would you say is one of the big misconceptions that school leaders often have about AI, and how do you help them to overcome those misconceptions?
I will tell you the thing that really gets me the most is the fact that we have a belief system that our adults in the organization are utilizing the technology resources that we have available. I will tell you, I work in schools where, they have systems where you can monitor what apps are being used. It's the same systems we use for kids, but little do they know we're monitoring the adults too. And nobody ever focuses on the adult side of it. And we wonder why our kids struggle. And I'll look and nobody's ever utilizing all textbooks now are almost all online or virtual. And I'll go online and I'll see that in a 2 or 3 week period, 2 people may have logged into the resources for, maybe 30 minutes a day, 40 minutes a day at maximum. And then we wonder why our kids struggle so much with technology. So that would be the first one. The second misconception that I think everybody believes is that this is going to go away. And it's not going away. It's ramping up every day. And, every new model that comes out, it grows exponentially by 10. By 10. Nothing else in history of mankind has exponentially grown at every release by 10. So that's another thing that I think people believe is if we ignore it, it will go away. And the last thing is that it's making people stupid. I will tell you, I work with Fortune 500 companies. I have several clients that are in the big industries, and they don't need a kid that can be a super stellar writer. They need a kid that knows how to use artificial intelligence or machine learning to create quality writing documents and grants and scientific papers. They need somebody that knows how to upload data into a machine so that the machine can analyze it effectively and then evaluate it. This conception that we need to go back, it's like that argument about teaching cursive. People, and when you ask people why we need to teach cursive, it's because they need to be able to sign a check. I don't know about you, I haven't carried a check in 10 years. So we're dedicating 20 minutes of our curriculum to things that we're not going to need. I'm going to argue this. Right now, we're teaching keyboarding. You and I both know that the younger generation don't even text with their thumbs anymore. They do voice to text. And so we're, as educators, not keeping up with the times, and yet the workforce is insisting on kids that know how to use speech to text. They're insisting on people that know how to use machine learning and AI. They're insisting on people that know how to program automation and robots. And our schools are not doing a very good job of it. And our university systems are not doing a very good job of it. I'm sure you've seen the data that by the time a graduate leaves the university system, what they learn is 4 years obsolete. So we have to reevaluate how we're doing things and not do things the way we've done them to. People will say, well, we have air conditioner and we have computers in our classroom, so we've kept up with the times. But I bet you if I was to take those out of every classroom, we go back and look at classrooms 250 years ago, classrooms are still looking the same. And they were effective at that time because it was a different economy. We are now working in an economy where they need results right away. I was just working with a company the other day that said that every week they have to wait for results, cost them millions of dollars. Every month that they wait gets into the billions of dollars. They can't wait around for humans on paper and pencil anymore to solve equations with abacus and slide rules. Especially when there's resources available that can solve that question in about a minute and a half.
This sounds reminiscent of a conversation I just had with a few other colleagues, particularly at a university, about managing the AI and sort of high-level content knowledge and critical thinking. But I think there was still, even within that conversation, a tone of mistrust of AI that in some ways it will erode students' ability to, like you said, write well or to have some of those critical thinking skills in order to produce work that is required for instructor grading.
Dr. Easley, but you know what I want to say to you and that group? Kudos to you. And I won't mention these districts here, but I work with districts that have been consulting with me and putting me on retainer to create a perfect solution to integrating artificial intelligence at school so kids won't plagiarize and all that. And in the meanwhile, they think kids aren't using it, but they're using it at home. I would rather those kids be using it around you and those colleagues that you're collaborating with, because you don't know how to even write the policy until you see what the problems really are. I do believe we need to legislate. I do believe we need to regulate, because again, it can be used to plagiarize. People are stealing intellectual property all the time. We are getting into a position now where a lot of kids are using their phone apps and everything else, and a lot of states have banned phones, and I'm glad that they've done it. Because you can go on some of the apps right now and take a picture of your math book and it'll give you the answer, and you can click on a little button and it'll even break it down into the steps for those teachers that want you to show your work. And then all you got to do is copy it from your phone down to a pencil and paper, and it looks like it's your original work. Did they really learn the math? No. So I do agree that there needs to be some dialogue and discussion, and I want to give you and your group a lot of praise for that, because a lot of schools have just decided, a lot of organizations, especially higher ed, they don't even want to have the discussion. They just get into the boat of, this is bad stuff. We're going to ban it. We're going to prohibit it. But the reality of it's being used even when you're not around.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We're speaking with Dr. Christopher Bonn, who is founder and creator of Bonfire Leadership Solutions. So, Chris, we talked about, we alluded to the good, bad, and the ugly, and we've talked about some of the current challenges. But when you look at the current AI landscape, what do you see as the top 3 risks facing children and adolescents today?
I think the first one has really nothing to do with AI, but it benefits AI. The first one is that 60% of everything that you see online, and even in some of the major media streams, is a deep fake that was created by AI. And we now have a society that is so trusting of everything that we hear and see visually that we believe it. You go onto any of the social media apps, and most of the stuff that you see on there is AI generated in garbage, and people are fighting all over the country about stuff, and it's ruining people's livelihoods and careers, and it's ruining our mechanism of having trust and confidence in one another. And I think that's going to have even greater implications then the implication that we don't have teachers working with our students.
And so, as many school systems treat AI as an instructional tool, how do you, or what do you suggest that they do in order to ensure safeguards or safety concerns regarding the use of AI in perhaps unsavory ways?
Well, I think we need to now start approaching technology and AI, machine learning, like we did when everybody came in and we had to learn mandatory reporting for, neglect and child abuse. We dedicated time to that. When you were an English teacher, you spent hours getting professional development in the areas of how to instruct English language arts or how to work with children who are English language learners. I think now with what's going on with artificial intelligence and some of the bad, it's not some of the bad, it's pretty outrageous of what we're seeing right now and how it's impacting our children. They're literally going after our school leaders, our children, and our teachers because we're one of the most vulnerable. As a society, we really care about our children and our kids. And so what's the best way to attack a society is to go after them in those. And AI opens that door. Social media opens that door.
So if you could give us an example.
Well, let me give you an example. Right now, in 10 seconds, I can record your voice, Dr. Easley. I can put it in an AI synthesizer and I can have it imitate your voice. And then I can just type in or speech to text what I wanted to say, and it would say it and nobody would be able to tell if it was you saying it or not. So throughout the United States, there's several court cases right now where disgruntled employees or disgruntled students or parents soundbite their principal or their teacher, and then they put out on social media them saying derogatory or racial things. And because society believes everything they hear and see the first time, and we don't fact check, it's destroyed livelihoods and careers. We see it every day. I don't know if you go to any social media sites right now, you see them doing it against all of our presidential leaders, our congressional leaders. If you go back and fact check most of that, 60%, if not more, isn't even really them saying it. They just get a photo of them. They soundbite them, and then they can get them to say and do anything they want them to do. And society believes it's really them doing it. And before the show started today, I showed you a video I created where I wrote the sound lyrics. I put it into AI, it did the music, and then I put it in another AI app, and it created a whole music video of me dancing with a beautiful Latina. And she's not even a real human being. And in fact, that's me in the videos, but they made me really look very handsome, a lot more handsome than I would be. And so you can see that it's making it more difficult to fact check, and it's eroding the confidence in this country. So schools really need to dedicate some time, whether they ban AI or not, it's still out there. The other thing we're finding out is they're going after 11-year-old boys. And I often wonder, why are they being predators to 11-year-old boys? And it's because boys tend to play more video games and they have easier access to them. So it's a numbers game. And so what they do is they go in and they solicit these boys to say things, get their pictures, they soundbite them, and then they create this fake pornography, what we call revenge porn, and then they go back to them and say, now, if you don't do this, this, and this, we're going to release this to your parents, or we're going to put it on social media. And we're seeing a huge uptake of kids mutilating themselves and creating bodily harm. And yet society still wants to ignore it. And I will tell you, we have no regulations or legislation protecting anybody from any of that. These people are doing it and they're not going to jail. And there's entire organizations doing it where I was writing with a school superintendent recently, and he got a phone call, actually a text message, and said, hey, and they just got their phone number off the internet, got their picture off the internet, and they superimposed it. Thank God I was in the car and I know AI. So I fact checked it and I could tell right away it was AI generated, but told him he had 15 seconds to wire cryptocurrency to his account, or they were going to release on social media him having sexual inappropriate relations with minors. And when he hung up the phone, guess what happened? Something came out on social media. So thank God, again, he was with me and I knew how to report it to the FBI. I told him, don't delete any of this stuff because you're going to need it to share with the FBI and the people. But this is going on. Like I said this morning, it's 80 million a month industry right now. And I don't think people are quite aware that it can happen to any of us in this room. And all they got to do is get on your website, get your phone number, get your picture. And then lastly, I would say we got to be careful of putting stuff out there, because now they can take those pictures and they can do horrible things with it. So, you put up, in a lot of schools, they'll put pictures of kids at events and celebrating at a thing. Somebody that is a cyber criminal can get in there and take one of those photos and put it on something derogatory or, slanderous, and it really can ruin somebody's life. We're seeing it all over the country. Police officers, government officials, school officials, anybody that is highly political or highly public is subject to being a victim of these crimes.
So we don't want to leave it there. First of all, let's go back, and I want to just give you kudos to that video. It is a nice looking video. So you did tell me it's AI generated, but what are the safeguards that parents and or school officials might be able to engage in? Just a few that might be at your fingertips to help ward off some of these unsavory acts about the use of AI.
So I think the first thing is that every school, I would argue, and I'm not doing this because of my business, because there's only about 3 or 4 of us that present on this in the whole United States. There's where lies the problem, right? You see that? We got millions of students in schools in our country, and there's not a whole lot of people that are talking about this. So that's first. You have to treat it just like you would treat curriculum. If you ignore AI, then you ignore its capabilities and its functions. If you continue to defend the fact that it makes mistakes, yes, it makes mistakes, but at a far less rate than a human being can make those mistakes. And now things are so realistic, it's even difficult to look at it and say, this is AI or not AI. So number one, become familiar with what AI is and what it can do and what it can't do. I think the next step is, what do you do when you see AI being used scandalously and misappropriately? There's a tip line on the FBI to report this kind of thing. And it's funny, I go all over the United States and people tell me all this. In fact, I was at a conference the other day, we were having lunch, and it happened to somebody at the lunch table. And they were like, why does it take so many clicks? And how come we don't know that you have to report this to the FBI cybercrime unit, and how you report it? And you don't want to delete the phone number, because that's how they're going to track things down, or the IP address. So I think you need to know it can happen to you and it might happen to you. So you better know what to do if it does happen to you. And I think we need to be doing a lot more lobbying to get more publicity out there to show people what to do in the event that this happens. And then lastly, for parents, I would be watching everything that your kid does. These guys they're notorious for pretending to be children or celebrities to entice kids to do things first. It's like a video game. They give them little claps, or they give them little tokens online, and then it becomes a game between other kids to see who's got more tokens. And then pretty soon you got to do more elaborate or scandalous things to get more tokens, and they build people up to this. They're groom people. And I think people need to realize that this is going on out there, and so that they can look for it happening. There's no reason why a kid should have to get in front of a camera on one of the social media apps. And I'm being very careful, notice, to not mention those social media apps, because they pay a lot of high-paying attorneys to come after guys like me to say that this is a problem, because it is a problem. And there's no reason for a 10 or 11-year-old kid to be dancing in their swimsuit in front of a camera to get a bunch of little gold tokens that later turns on to be, if you want more. They even now are sending money to kids. I don't know if you've paid attention, but there's a lot of influencers out there that are making more than some of our Fortune 500 CEOs, because advertisers will pay them to be on their sites once they get past so many followers. And so they do it a couple of ways. They do it in very scandalous ways. Another way that they do it is rage baiting. They'll literally get on social media and they'll yell out racist comments, and everybody that gets back there and rebuts them for doing it is actually getting them an algorithm, and sponsors will throw money at them. So this is a pretty lucrative business. In fact, I have a couple people that I follow just for training purposes that are 17, 16 years old, and they've already cleared $9-10 million in a year and they've dropped out of school because their response is I'll never make this money if I go to college and I get a degree and go on. And so I'm a little concerned about that because that's what we're up against.
Well, sensationalism is in some ways quite seductive. So whether it's rage or things that are very fantastical, that is a draw. And we do need to be mindful. But in the push for educational technology, where do inequities most affect students? So we assume that we're talking about AI and everyone has access to it. Do we have equal access? As you mentioned earlier, so protections and training. So how do we address inequities regarding educational technology as we see this a growing feature of the educational enterprise?
Well, I'm not a legal advocate, but the first thing that I would say, and I say this to all the schools that I consult, now that we know about this, your failure to act upon it is negligence and malfeasance. If you're a school superintendent and you're not spending time teaching your staff on, one, the things that can keep them in your school because you can make life more efficient for them and they can get home at a decent time, shame on you. But more importantly, if you think you're going to ignore it and they're not going to come after your children and they're not going to come after your school, or they're not going to use sensationalism or any of these other tools to solicit kids to do bad things, in my opinion, that's negligence. And again, this is why I keep saying I see this so much. We're not going to address. And I'll tell you, I know some of the top largest school districts in the United States are not even having the conversation right now. And they think, well, if we're not using it at school, well, the kids are using it at home. They're on their cell phone. And I know people will argue, well, not every kid has a cell phone. Well, even if not every kid has a cell phone, their mom might, or their dad might, or their best friend might. They have access to it. I would rather be teaching my students and my staff what's out there, what's available, the good, also the bad, and the ugly. Because everybody thinks that it's happening to somebody else until it happens to them. And it's so unfortunate, the amount of phone calls and emails that I get with people telling me you were so right. I kept thinking that it would never happen to me, and it happened to me. And in Colorado, there was a recent case, you can look it up online, where a principal had to discipline a coach. And so the coach took a soundbite of him in a faculty meeting, and then he had the principal stating all this racial comment, and he posted it on social media. They caught the guy doing it. The guy ended up getting in serious trouble, both tort liability, having to pay lawsuits, also got some jail time out of it, but it never repaired the reputation of that principal. He never got his job back. He never got his dignity back because people don't fact check. And so we don't ever want it to happen, because in these kinds of situations, it creates enough doubt on people's integrity and their decision making that nobody wants their kids, nobody wants leaders that there may be that hint of doubt. And then lastly, it's pretty easy to fact check things. I see things all the time like, oh, the United States just bombed Venezuela. And I believe it, but you know what I do? I get on a couple fact-checking sites and I make sure that it's accurate or not. And guess what? It hasn't been accurate. And it's funny because I'll go around and go into faculty and dining areas and lunch areas, and it's the whole topic of discussion. And then I'll have to stop everybody and say, did you fact check it? Well, no, but it was on this website and I really believe everything that they say. So I'll show them how to fact check it. And they all were like, thank you so much for doing that kind of stuff. So this is just a world we live in. And if you're going to be a school and ignore it, and you're not going to teach the good, the bad, and the ugly, you're probably going to be a victim to one of these crimes, or you're definitely going to be testifying in a lawsuit because somebody in your institution is a victim of those crimes.
So I believe, and I know this is a very important topic. So we had a guest on our show talking about media and the change in the landscape of media, and the different, and how media either disrupts or sort of supports free speech and democracy. That was Dr. Sandeep Mupidi. And one of the things that he really drove home was this idea of fact checking. So I appreciate you bringing that up. So, Chris, what kind of transformation do you hope that Bonfire Leadership Solutions will spark within districts and school communities that you support, if anything different from that sort of closing remark around how we need to think about technology going forward?
I think the thing I want to add, Dr. Easley, is this. Our job in public education, it's not to prepare kids to read, write, and do math. That's a byproduct of a good school. Our job is to prepare kids to be contributing citizens in a global economy and workforce. And if the workforce is saying we can't find people in this country that have the skill sets to work with the technologies because we're refusing to train people and to use it, then we're doing a disservice to our population. We're doing a disservice to our citizens. I will be the first one to acknowledge that there's a lot of things that can go wrong with this technology and AI, but it's not going away. Let's be like that group that you talked about, and let's sit down and let's have dialogue. It's not hard for me to get a job working in this. Bonfire gets hired all the time because usually schools are in sanction and they got to get compliance reports done, and they just don't have the staffing to do it. So they call me and I knock them out pretty quick because I know how to use the technology. But when I'm there, I see the bad and the ugly too, and they want to ignore it. They don't want to address it. So it's funny how we're real quick that we want to get our reports done, and it's okay that we use the technology and we want those people there, but we don't want to use it as a tool or as a resource, and we don't want to integrate it enough so that we're doing a good job of preparing kids to be contributing citizens of a global economy and workforce.
We're speaking with Dr. Christopher Bonn, creator and founder of Bonfire Leadership Solutions. Chris, what is next for Bonfire or for you, and how might the EdUp Accelerated Excellence community engage with your work?
So first of all, the honor is all mine, because the first defense is that we need to educate our people on what's available out there and what is out there. And again, I'm probably one of the first people you're going to hear talk about the good, bad, and the ugly, because I love AI, but I'm also scared of it. And because of that, I'm very cautious and I want to educate people. So what's next for me right now is just to continue this education campaign. How the EdUp Accelerated Excellence community can help us is just by what I said today. Number one, we can't ignore the problem anymore, and we can't ignore artificial intelligence. Yes, it's the good, it's the bad, and it's the ugly. But we need to know about all three of those so that we can be proactive, and we can also be preventative in making sure that we don't become victims, or it does not destroy the fabric of this country that we live in. And number two, we need to make sure we're integrating it, because if we're integrating it, we're teaching people how to prepare for the global economy and workforce. And lastly, we need to provide professional development and training in all of our organization. And as I've stated before, if you refuse to do this as a school leader, you're engaging in negligence and it's malfeasance, because somebody is going to fall prey and victim to it. So I need the EdUp Accelerated Excellence community to get out there and insist that their schools, both K-12 and higher ed, do a better job of having dialogue and professional development and training, and insist that we're integrating it, even though it can do some bad things, because it's necessary for us to move forward.
Chris, thank you so much for this opportunity to learn with and from you here at EdUp Accelerated Excellence.
Thank you again. Honor is all mine.
Thank you for engaging with EdUp Accelerated Excellence, a member of the EdUp Experience network of educational podcasts. You can find this and other episodes on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Radio, YouTube, and other outlets where you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you like this episode, don't forget to follow us and share within your network. To leave a comment or suggest a guest, contact us online at edupxe.com.
A special thanks to our research assistant, Emma Worthington, a PhD student of Fordham University's School Psychology program. And we want to hear from you if you have feedback on this or other episodes, or would like to nominate a guest. Contact us online at edupxe.com. That's edupxe.com.